Let's see, Jai Shriman Narayana. Yeah, it is recording. Right.
Very good.
So, thank you for participating to the meeting. And today
Thank you, Mataji.
We can talk about Vedic astrology. Okay.
Mataji, thank you so much for this topic because, do you know, like for the average sort of person growing up, particularly in the West, astrology is at best seen as a pseudoscience. I mean, my experience of astrology is what used to call in England mystic meg. You know, growing up was basically some person, you know, at the back of the newspapers you'd have a star chart, you know, what your star sign was predicted for the week.
Well,
you know, and you'd have you'd have a lot of chancers and charlatans, the crystal ball. You'd have all that. So that was what your exposure to astrology is. And you'd regard it, Mataji, at best as a pseudoscience. It was just someone saying some gobbledygook based on something. And then during my study of Sanatana Dharma, I understood that it's actually much more scientific than that. It's actually based on hard science. And you then start to think, it's the movement of the planets. And that's about it, Mataji. That's where my knowledge ends. And what I wanted to understand from you, particularly in light of the last 2 episodes that we've done, where we've talked about the past of Hinduism, this links in nicely with where you see the future of Hinduism. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on the background of astrology, and then perhaps go into where you see the future of Hinduism astrologically. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Mataji.
Okay, thank you. So, actually, it's a very interesting subject, and it has become pretty popular as well, especially in this last period. There are lots of people, for example, trying to understand if Kali Yuga is finished or not, or if it is going to finish. I know lots of people are trying to study Vedic astrology. It has become quite popular. In the Vedic astrology, technically the Sanskrit term is jyotish. Jyoti coming from light, because the meaning is light. Because the astrology is dealing with the light bodies that we can observe in the sky, whether they're stars or planets or satellites or whatever. We can see them because they are radiant. They show up as spots of light. So this is also interesting. Now, to understand the general perception of astrology, as you mentioned, as a pseudoscience, as or a superstition, or or sometimes even a fraud, we need to understand that astrology and astronomy are extremely ancient, not just in the Vedic tradition, but in the Western traditions as well, especially in the Middle East. But already they were very well known in Europe since the times of the Neanderthals. So we have seen that there are still around monuments.
Since the time of the Neanderthals, it's really interesting, because we are given this impression of Neanderthals being brute beasts.
That's exactly one of the historical, propaganda narratives that need to be clarified. Actually, the recent research has shown that, for example, the Neanderthals are not a different species from Cro-Magnon, Homo sapiens. They're actually the same species. They're different races. Because they are interfertile. With the developments of genetics, the scientists have verified that practically the totality of European population has a variable percentage of Neanderthal genes. In some groups of population, some phenotypes specifically, like blonde or red hair, like that, the percentage of Neanderthal genes can go up to the 4, 6, or 8%. And we know that different species are not interfertile. We have interfertility among races of the same species, but not between different species. But anyway.
So you mean interfertile meaning interbreeding? So
yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. So, like for example, we have a horse and a donkey, can have a child that's called a mule. But the mule cannot have any offspring.
Yes.
And the same thing happens with the plants. When you cross the plants, you get a hybrid. And hybrids are born, but their seeds are not fertile. They cannot.
Yes.
That's why the agricultural support industry, they're selling seeds that are hybrids, because otherwise they go out of business. If people can grow fertile seeds themselves, why should they buy seeds from a commercial company?
Yes. So effectively, astrology's been here since the dawn of man.
Well, since dawn of man, Well, according to the ancient cultures, including the Vedic culture, there has not been a dawn of man.
Well, no. What I'm saying is astrology's been here.
It's a manner of speech. It's a manner of speech.
It's a manner of speech. So astrology's and astronomy are both very ancient.
Exactly. Why I mentioned the Neanderthals, because they have actually, the archaeologists, paleontologists have found some Neanderthal sites in Europe, especially underground caves, with the depiction of the zodiac. And the proper indications of the solstice, especially the winter solstice. And we have the same thing, for example, all the ancient megalithic monuments, including Stonehenge and Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe in the Anatolian Peninsula, Turkey, present-day Turkey, they're all aligned with the solstice. And there are several places, monuments, we can call them, also in Northern Europe, in Britain, for example. They're called grange. They're half buried underground, and there is a corridor that is perfectly aligned with the winter solstice. So, astronomy and astrology were very important. Also, for thousands and thousands of years, human beings have been traveling, especially across the seas and the oceans by using the stars.
Yes.
In Mesopotamia, the Sumerians and the Babylonians were famous for their knowledge of astrology and astronomy. So it is even said that they built the ziggurat for, to observe the movements of the stars and like that. The great pyramids, pyramids of Giza, they're aligned with Sirius, with the star, the constellation, the star of Sirius. So, in fact,
that's interesting because there was a school of thought that said the pyramids aligned with Orion's belt. Has that been proven to be true or not?
I think, let me check, but I think that Orion belt and Sirius are connected. Let me see. Just
only because I think in Fingerprints of the Gods they demonstrated that Orion's belt had some was aligned like the
actually the Sirius star is called Canis Major, which means a greater dog, and it was connected with the dog of Orion, who is a hunter. So,
yes,
Sirius, the brightest star I'm reading from Google. The brightest star in the night sky is easily located by following the three stars of Orion's belt, Mintaka, Anilam, and Alnitak, downward towards the eastern horizon. It is a bright white star, blah, blah, blah. It is connected. Sirius is in the constellation Canis Major, known as the dog star. While Orion's belt points to it, Sirius is not part of the Orion constellation itself, but rather the neighboring Canis Major. So, basically, the connection is there. Sirius is not a part of the constellation of Orions, but it's very strictly connected.
Right, interesting.
Okay, so this was all to introduce the idea that astrology was extremely popular all along what is considered today history. Now, why it became, fell out of favor, it became maligned. It started with the Bible, started with Christianity. Now, the point is the Bible is condemning astrology and prohibiting it, together with all the forms of divination and trying to see the future and everything. Not because it is a bad practice, but because non-government astrologers were a competition. Now, the cult of Yahweh, started as a tribal cult for an oracle. So only the priests of that particular cult were allowed to give oracles, to give divinations, prophecy, stuff like that. All the others were considered competition, and they had to be persecuted and eliminated. So, just as the same as other gods, were persecuted, or all competition was considered,
Yeah, absolutely. And the cynic would argue, and I don't know if you can attest to this, is that they hid it from the masses but kept it to themselves. Is that right?
Exactly. But not only that, they practiced it themselves, and because they wanted a monopoly on it. Just as the other commandment that it says you should not pronounce the name of God in vain. That's because only the priests were authorized, had the privilege to pronounce the name of God when they were calling for the oracle. This basically was meant to cut off the people from the direct access to knowledge, to, religious rituals.
Yes. And even now, Mataji, there is a school of thought that says is that those who who stay in the shadows and control the world, all major events happen on dates that are interlinked due to astrology.
They organize. They plan according to that. But okay, that is because it's not published knowledge. We can just call them theories. But the most important thing is that astrology in itself has always been considered important. Now, of course, astrology is the same as astronomy. Means the observation of the luminaries in the sky is based on the knowledge of the luminaries in the sky, like the sun, the stars, the planets, and the moon, and that is astronomy. Now, that observation is necessarily performed from the observation point of the Earth. So, it's a perspective that sometimes can be confusing because it gives the impression that there are movements in the sky that are not what they seem to be. Like, for example, you may have heard of retrograde planets.
Yes. Mars is going retrograde. That means this is happening. I've seen that in astrological forecasts. Basically.
Retrograde doesn't mean that actually the planet is going backwards. It just means that it appears to be going backwards or stationary, and backwards. Because of our point of observation, because the Earth moves. So, and this is also true about the shape of the constellations. So the various constellations or groups of stars only have that shape because of the angle from which we observe them from the Earth. Because otherwise, if we go out in the space, and we go in a different position, the stars will have a different, appear to have different positions.
So what you're saying is that it's dependent on the fact that you're on Earth.
Yeah.
So it's an Earth-based position, effectively.
Yeah. I mean, the knowledge of the space and the objects in space, of course, doesn't depend on Earth, because it's an objective thing, it's an objective science. But the point is, when we speak about astrology, it's about the observation from the Earth. Okay.
Right.
So this includes, for example, one of the main, astrological statements of teachings of Vedic knowledge is the apparent movements of the sun observed from Earth. So we have 6 months when the sun appears to be moving northwards. They're called the 6 months of Uttarayana.
Yes.
And the 6 months when the sun appears to be moving southwards, which is called Dakshinayana. This is also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, for example.
Yes, because he mentions that when certain people choose to die or leave their body, they go when the sun is going upwards, whereas other people who leave their bodies when the sun is going downwards go to the moon planet. That's I think some mentioned as well.
It's mentioned not because it is compulsory to go to the sun or to the moon or whatever, but because the alignment of the subtle dimensions is easier towards one destination or the other. Like, for example, in the Vayana, these 6 months when the sun becomes brighter, the alignment of the dimensions is helping a yogi or sadhaka to go towards the Devaloka, like Swarga and Brahmaloka and even beyond.
So Matri, the way we look at that is, like if you want to leave from an island to the mainland, that's when the bridge opens. The hours of the bridge are open.
Exactly. I would say more than the hours of the bridge is the season of the monsoons.
Right, I'm with you.
Because if, in ancient times also, people used to go around the oceans a lot, and they used the cycle of the monsoons, or the cycles of the winds. Because in one season, the monsoon, the winds were blowing in one direction, and in the next season they were blowing in the opposite direction. So they were going and coming back.
It's really funny because, like, my family in India, when they would go to they'd say, you can't go to Kedarnath at this time of the year because the roads are impassable, you just can't get there, whereas you can only go during those particular months. So is it something akin to that, basically?
Yeah. It's but it's on a subtler level. When you go to Kedarnath or travel to the Himalayas, because it's very cold, so during the cold period of the year, there is just too much snow. You cannot just walk around.
The roads are blocked.
The roads are blocked. And in the same way, when the wind is blowing one way, you cannot go against the wind.
No, that makes total sense. But Mataji, again, coming at it from the really, really neophytic, typical, person that I am, I'm there thinking, all right, well, you've got these planets moving, I totally get that, but I'm thinking to myself, what does the movement of a planet have to do? How is that related to something that might happen to me or to the world or to, I'm trying to link the two, and I'm struggling.
It's the same like the weather forecast. What has the weather to do with you?
Well, I mean, if the weather's bad and the roads are blocked, there's no point in me going to a certain place,
Exactly. But if you really need to go, you just, have to go. But that it will be more difficult. So maybe, you take some, extra food to carry because you might be stuck somewhere for a couple of days. Take some water, whatever. So in the same way, we are talking about the cosmic weather. The weather of the universe, which is not as physically obvious as the atmospheric weather. It's about subtle currents of energy. The subtle currents of energy are acting not only on the earth and our electromagnetic, body and mind. But also on the sun, for example, you heard about the solar storms and the
solar storms.
Geomagnetic storms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If you don't have a very delicate electronic equipment, you won't even notice that it comes. You will probably just feel grumpy, cranky, just feel tired, you have a headache, you don't know why.
Yeah, and similarly, Matachi, we know that, like, the moon, when there's a full moon, hospitals tend to get more admissions with certain types of illnesses, shall we say, including mental health.
Not only hospitals.
You know that?
Yeah, but you have that. There is a spike. That has been recorded, a spike in some criminal activities. Because we are, our body and mind are very sensitive. And we can see the effect of the moon, of the tides, of seas and rivers and everything. So the same effect we can see on our body liquids. We see, for example, the cycle of the menstruation in women is connected to the moon. Of course, it can get out of whack, but still there is some effect, just like in the tides. And in the movements of the earth, the movements of the moon, and the alignment of the planets, like, for example, during the eclipses, when we have an eclipse, the gravitational and geomagnetic pull increases many times. That is why in ancient times, and especially in Vedic tradition, during the eclipses one should be very quiet. Don't do any there are some particular activities that is better not to do, like, for example, cooking or doing, making social rituals for the devas, like in the Karma Kanda, so that's a particular time in which our electromagnetic fields are perturbed, are disturbed. And in the same way, during the full moon and the new moon and the famous Ekadashi day, on Ekadashi, this is the 11th day of the waxing and waning moon, so it comes twice a month. It is a time when the change of course of our psychophysical, psychosomatic situation is stronger. So it's going to almost coming to the middle of the position between waning and it almost becomes full or almost becomes empty.
So I've got a couple of questions based on what you've said. So again, I'm looking at it from the simpleton that I am, and I'm thinking, how is it determined whether a particular movement of a planet or a star linked to another planet or star is a benefit or is of detriment to a particular individual?
Okay. This is a particular, more than good or bad, it's favorable or unfavorable to some particular activities.
Yes.
Yeah, because the subtle qualities of the energy that is coming through the different, cosmic arrangements, we can call them planets, stars, or whatever, is different for each particular planet or star or whatever. So we have, for example, Mars. Mars is a very interesting planet because in Sanskrit, in Vedic astrology, it's called both Mangala and Angaraka. Mangala means auspicious, but Angaraka is the non-auspicious, the opposite. So it has both aspects. So it's not that the planet is inauspicious by itself. This is a very simplistic and we could say even superstitious view of the situation. Like, for example, also Saturn, Shani. Shani is sometimes considered inauspicious, but only because it's a planet of overcoming material attachments. So, for people who want material attachments, like in Gita is saying, kama kami, those who desire desires, For people who are attached to material attachments, of course, Saturn, Shani is not, doesn't look like a friend. But Shani is the planet of sannyas. And in Vedic culture, sannyasis are considered inauspicious persons because they have renounced the material life. So sannyasis are not supposed to, be among human society. They have to stay out. They cannot attend weddings, for example. They cannot attend karma kanda rituals. They cannot attend any ritual or festivity or occasion in which people expect to have auspiciousness. But, people forgot this. So now they think that sannyasis should celebrate marriages of their disciples, which is not really. You follow?
Okay. I do, and I think so that I'm now starting to understand. So my next question related to what you were saying is that we've got Western astrology, which is my limited sort of experience of that is just your star signs and somebody on TV saying, "Oh, Cancer,
that's because
this."
because as we said in the beginning. We have come in the West, in Western culture, we have come through almost 2,500 years of persecution of astrologers.
No, my question, Mataji, is, obviously, we're looking at, for the average person in the West, they see the star signs, the zodiac, but then you've got Vedic astrology. Is there a link between the common Western zodiac and Vedic astrology? What are the fundamentals of Vedic astrology in comparison to the West, Mataji? That's the Western version.
Oh, okay. No, it's the same. Only the difference, as I was saying, is that in the West, we lost a lot of astrological knowledge because it was persecuted. So when the persecution continues, the only people who keep going are usually those who are less knowledgeable, and therefore they're not considered very dangerous by the establishment. This happened exactly the same with the Brahmanas in India. The real Brahmanas were the first to be persecuted by the Muslim invaders. So the Muslim domination, targeted the most qualified in Hindu society and they they persecuted them, they killed them, or they artificially made them outcast by forcing them to become degraded or unclean, or something like that. So in the same way, the Western astrology lost a lot of information, because in ancient times, also the so-called Western astrology, they knew very well about the stars, for example. Today Western astrology doesn't consider even the stars, just considers the planets.
Yeah, that's my point, Matsuki, because when you go to Western astrology, you come across just planets and star signs. But can I ask, obviously it's a big topic, and you've heard, we hear about the Surya Siddhanta.
Yes.
Can we talk about the fundamentals of the Surya Siddhanta? Say I'm a newcomer. What are the core principles that I should be looking for, Mataji?
Okay.
Assume no knowledge, but it's just that's fascinating. I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I am not a vedic astrologer. I'm not an astrologer. So I don't know the Surya Siddhanta that well.
No, but the basic fundamentals.
The basics are that are common both to the Vedic astrology and current Western astrology, is that there are 12 signs. In Sanskrit they're called rasi. Okay, and the names are very similar. Like we have the Vrisha. We have the Aries is the let me check because I don't remember. It's
the Aries the Ram. The Aries the Ram.
Yeah, the Ram, exactly. Okay, let me astrology Rashi chart. Okay, so we have let me see, Rashi chart. No, it's not Rashi. It's not a chart. Rashi list. Yeah. Rashi list. We have yes. Aries is called Mesh, which is also a ram. Vrishaba is also Taurus is also a bull. Gemini is called Mithuna, which is not exactly twins, but it's a couple. But it's
right.
The idea is the two individuals together. Then we have Karka is a Cancer, which is the same. Cancer is a crab. Then we have Singha and Leo are the lion.
Yeah, they're the same. Yeah.
Then Kanya of Virgo is the same, is a young girl, is a girl. Tula in Libra is the same, it's a balance scale. Vrishika is also a Scorpion. Dhanu is a Sagittarius means archer in Latin. Sagitta means arrow. So the Sagittarius is the one who throws arrows, which means archer. And Dhanu means arch, bow. Makara, the Capricorn, this is interesting because the Capricorn is, even in Western astrology, is not just a goat. It's a goat with the tail of a fish. And in the Vedic astrology, it's a particular type of symbolic animal, which is also a son of Hanuman. And the Makara probably, I don't know if you've seen it, especially in South India, we can see them above the temples, above the entrance of the temples, sometimes above the Garbhagriha of the deities, or about the deities themselves. Sometimes when we have the okay, let me see if we can find it easily. Makara. Let me see. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to.
So Matthew, whilst you're doing that,
yeah,
there's 12 star signs.
Yeah.
The vedic has 12 star signs as well, isn't it? Basically, Matthew, do you have it? Yeah.
Let me show. The Makara. You see, this is in Orissa specifically. It's in a Konark temple, a famous Makara here, and we can see in different. It's a Capricorn,
right.
When we have the Capricorn, the image you see here.
Yes, I can see that.
Yeah, it's not very different from the Makara.
No. Nope.
So this is the idea. Now, you were saying about the 12 signs, the constellation of the zodiac, which are called Rasi in Sanskrit.
Yes.
Okay, the Kumbha is also the Aquarius, means it's the water jug. Water pitch. And Mina is the Pisces, means fish.
Yeah.
Which is exactly the same.
Correct.
Now, the point is that this shows that there is a common ancestry of astrology. It was the same, exactly the same. And according to according to the Hindu tradition, we know that several waves of migration went out of India towards the West. It's a famous out of India theory that has been proven as more valid, believable, and solid than the Aryan invasion theory. So basically, astrology, the Western astrology, was brought into the West from India. Now, what it lost on the way is the knowledge of the 27 nakshatras, which are not the constellations of the zodiac. There are more of them. So the Vedic astrologers has more information about astrology. And another thing is that Vedic astrology considers something that, I don't know if you heard about, I think you heard about it, is the precession of the equinoxes.
Yes, definitely.
Which is the apparent movement of the solar system in this zodiac. So it's the solar, the great year. Just like the Earth, the sun from the Earth, it appears that the sun is moving through the 12 constellations, the 12 zodiac signs in one Earth year. In the same way, there is a movement, a greater movement in the zodiac, but it's on the opposite direction, and instead of taking 1 year, it takes 26,000 years. So these are, you heard about the age of Aquarius, for example?
Yes, Matthew, what does that actually mean? We hear a lot about that.
It means that the great year is 26,000 Earth years, and that means that each month is about 2,100 years.
I've heard a lot about that.
Yeah.
What's its significance, Mataji?
The meaning is that,
much.
Okay, if the entire year, the entire great year is 26,000 years of the earth, 1 month of the great year is equal to 2,100 earth years, right?
Yep.
Now, because we move, solar system and everything, we move through this great year backwards. We are coming out, we just came out of the age of Pisces. And
so we've moved literally 20, we've finished a 26,000 year cycle. Is that what you're saying?
We finished the 2,100 years.
Oh, we've moved out of one of the months. Is that right?
Yeah, from the month of Pisces, we moved into the month of Aquarius.
Yeah, so we've moved out of one of the chunks of the 26,000 years.
Yeah, a month. One of the months.
Yeah.
Before the age of Pisces, there was the age of Aries. Before the age of Aries, it's just going backwards. Before the age of Aries, there was the age of Taurus. Before the age of Taurus, there was the age of Gemini.
Yeah, okay. But when each of these chunks, when each of these months happens, is there a huge sort of,
there are major changes. Yeah. There are, like in the cosmic weather. Like, for example, if you study a little bit the characteristics of the Pisces as a sign, as a zodiac sign, you'll find that it's a sentimentalistic sign, very emotional. Gregarious means the people like to be in a group. So they move as a group, like the fish. They usually move together. If you have seen small fish going around together, you see that, they move, exactly together.
Yeah, it's like a shoal. When you see a shoal of fish moving, they're moving in unison.
Exactly. So in the age of Pisces, there is a lot of feeling, sentimentality, and crowd tendency.
Yes, groupthink.
Group movement. It's not so much thinking, but it's a movement. Then in the age of Aries, we have a tendency, a warlike tendency.
That's Aries, the time before that.
Because Aries, is Ares, Mars is the lord of the Aries. So also the age of Pisces was the age of Christianity mostly, and in the beginning, that early Christians used the fish as their symbol.
Yes.
And that's because in Greek the word fish is ichthus. Like we still see, for example,
we see ichthyosaur.
Exactly.
As well. Yeah.
Exactly.
So we've moved now though from the age of Pisces. Am I right? To a new age.
we entered the age of Aquarius, which is, for example, the Aquarius is an androgen sign. Means it doesn't give much importance to the difference of gender.
Yes, it's neither male nor female. Is that right, basically?
Doesn't care about male or female. It's intellectual and it's technology oriented, but at the same time, it's a Saturn technology. So it's not like Gemini. It's the Aquarius is more subtle technology. So we see like electronics and especially the digital, of artificial intelligence and stuff, which can be used in a good way or in a bad way. Again, but we see the tendencies there. Another big tendency of the Aquarius is individualism. Like Aquarius people who have a strong influence of Aquarius sign, they are usually very individualist, although they like the cosmic universal brotherhood. They like to have their own home. They don't like to live together all in one place. While the opposite was true for the age of Pisces, where people like to be piled up all together. So, and the age of Aries, which was before that, was characterized, like, for example, you have probably heard about the ram head.
Yes.
When they say that the armies were going for siege and they wanted to break down the doors of the gates of some city, they were ramming them.
Yep, correct. Ramming, battering ram.
Battering ram, because they actually used a big piece of wood, a big tree trunk, and at the head of this tree trunk was a head of a ram, usually made in iron.
Yes.
Because it's very effective in breaking down stuff, the horns and everything. So, and, before that, the general tendency in the age of Taurus was worship of Mother Earth.
Right.
Because the Taurus is ruled by Venus, who is the mother goddess.
Yes, and Mataji, is that so? With this age of sort of Aquarius, is that where the term New Age comes from, Mataji?
Yeah.
Because we hear the word New Age. This is New Age, etc. Is that where that comes from, basically? Yeah. Like this. So. That's really fascinating. So, Mataji, you were saying that obviously Vedic astrology has more of an in-depth feel to it. Because
it has more knowledge, let's say.
Okay. I know, obviously, that now I'm starting to understand. My next question, Mataji, is that where does you go to an astrologer, Mataji? Not that I go, but if someone was to go, what does he or she, I mean, you've obviously, in your life, you've had lots of, you've met them. What happens, Mataji, when you go to a Vedic astrologer? What do they do?
It depends if the astrologer is a good one, a qualified, intelligent, knowledgeable person or not.
Let's assume, I mean, there's no way the average person, obviously, to check, but let's assume the person is a qualified individual. What happens during Vedic astrology
usually,
when you go to an astrologer?
When you go to any astrologer, Western or Vedic or whatever, they speak about the birth chart. Okay, birth chart is the position of the various planets at the time when you were born.
So that's why they want to know what time you were born on a particular date. Basically.
Time and day and everything. So they can establish, they have these charts, they're called ephemerides. So these are charts where you can check, you can find out what was the exact position of each planet, each major planet, including the moon, which is not a planet but is also, graha, at the time of your birth, time and place of your birth.
So that's why they're asking you not only the time and day, but also the place, because the latitude and longitude are also important. Because the angle of the arrival of the cosmic rays or currents is different, depending on where you are on the planet. So they calculate the birth chart, so-called horoscope, but birth chart is more accurate. But and depending on that, they can tell which were the influences that shaped your physical and mental kit when you were born. So, like, let's say, for example, you were born with Sun in Aquarius or Moon in Leo, for example. So you have both the characteristics of the Aquarius and the Leo, but your Leo characteristics, because they are more movable, the ascendant is the time of the day, not the day itself. So, or the moon is much faster than the sun. So the moon can, is really moving faster on the ephemeris charts. So it will be more about your sense, your feelings, your emotions, because the moon is connected to the emotions, and also they're quick to change. You see how it works.
Yes.
Then, for example, Venus is a planet of sanctification, possessions, material possessions, and lifestyle, and depending if Venus at the time of your birth was in a nice position, let's, for example, placed in a I don't know, in a constellation, in a sign that was favorable.
Yes.
In Taurus, for example, you'll have a very strong tendency to sanctification. You like good food. You are likely to prefer to live in the countryside with a nice natural setting and nice house.
So what is the thing? They know, they can predict your personality, your likes and dislikes.
Your tendencies. It's just like the weather forecast. They cannot say what you actually are.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
But Mataji, my question then is that you go to one of these people, or people that I know have been to these people, and they say, well, my next question, and then we're going to lead to a bigger question.
Okay.
My next question is that they also say, they look at your birth charts, and then they say, well, you know what? The best time to start your business, or the best time to undertake this project, is going to be between October the 2nd and October the 30th. That's when I would recommend that you do this, or whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
How
this is due to what they call transits. Transits means that the planets are not stuck at the place where they were when you were born. They move. So all along your life, they move around, and they can get themselves in good, more favorable position for some things, or maybe not. Like, for example, when we have retrograde Mercury, it's a bad time for communication. Better you be quiet. Don't start a website.
Right. Yes.
Because there is some resistance. It's not a very favorable position.
Yes.
But that depends on the position or the movements of the planets during your lifetime and during the year, and but they change also, because planets also influence each other in what they call aspects. So the aspects can be in opposition, conjoint, or trine, or it depends on the respective positions between the planets and with the Earth.
So Mataji, we know that famous events, wars, everything have been astrologically predicted. Well, not predicted in the sense they've been things have happened.
They are more likely to happen.
Yeah. So we know that famous people in the past have gone to astrologers, and basically they've said, if you want to start this campaign, or if you want to start the war, if you want to start whatever, you've got to please choose this date. Is that advice based on the movement of the planets at a specific time that then creates the favorable conditions to then
it's just like the weather. Just like the weather. If you're planning to go out and have a picnic, it's better to go when it doesn't rain. Yes,
absolutely. So Mataji, this leads us to a really important question, which is, I think, it's been really interesting that we've started from a place of literally about something very basic, and you've talked about the weather, you've talked about these things. Before I get to the big question, I want to ask you about palmistry and astrology, or whatever, because
palmistry is not astrology.
No. What it is. I've been to India.
Well, there are some connections.
That's right. So someone's looked at man and said, "Oh, your mound, your Mars mount is this, or whatever." What are they talking about there, Mataji?
Well, because everything is connected, and the hand, just like the soles of the feet, are very, amazing, creations, engineering marvels. And they're very personal. It's difficult to find two people with exactly the same, specific details of hands and feet. So we have, for example, in the Vedic tradition, the Hindu tradition, we have sometimes the symptoms of the avatars, that they have these symbols on their hands and feet.
Yes.
Because the position of the lines and the shape of the hands and the feet are like charts, basically, so they can indicate stuff. But the interesting thing is, for example, I have seen myself that, especially regarding the lines of the hands, they can change. So when the palmist is looking at your hands, they see what is your current situation, not your birth situation.
That's interesting. That's really interesting, because what you're saying is that the lines on the hand do change.
They can change. They can change. Yeah.
Okay. So, Mataji, my next question really relates to.
Okay.
You've talked that we've moved from this age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius. Yeah. On that front, we've had that 2-part series so far where we've talked a little bit about the future, the past of Hinduism.
Yeah.
Where do you see things looking at the future of Hinduism and the cosmic weather? Where do you, if you were to put a cosmic weather forecast and then specifically relate that to Hinduism, with a broad brush stroke, of course, because you're not no one can be entirely precise. Where do you see things evolving in the near and perhaps far distant future, if that makes sense, Mataji?
Yeah, so considering that Kali Yuga, according to Surya Siddhanta, is 400,000 years and change, so we are going to see many great years of 26,000 years within that number. So, many people say, oh, Kali Yuga is finished, Kali Yuga is going to finish, or is finished already.
Absolutely. No,
some confusion there.
Yes, yes.
And mostly this confusion is due to, like David Frawley and Sri Yukteswar, who have introduced the idea that, in fact, the yugas are much shorter, than what the Surya Siddhanta says. And they also introduced the idea of the ascending and descending halves of the yugas, which is also not confirmed in the Shastra. But anyway, so what happens is that in each big change, times of change, there are always more possibilities. The times of change are difficult, but they're also rich in opportunities, in possibilities. You heard about that famous trope, the famous story that in Chinese or Japanese something, the same ideogram for a problem also means opportunity, because it's true. Every difficulty is offering us a bigger opportunity for change, for growth. When things are too quiet, we don't evolve much. No. we evolve more when we are a bit under pressure. So we can ride the wave of the change. And the characteristics of the new age, a new age of Aquarius, is as I was mentioning, the technology like the internet. And that is definitely a very big opportunity for Hinduism and for all the other ancient knowledge, proponents that are coming up. We can see them, a lot coming up. So if you go around a little bit, you see people coming, for example, with the early Christianity as Gnosticism. There is a lot of knowledge coming out also from academic researchers, not just fringe, independent, not official researchers, from very, very respected and recognized official academic researchers that are showing very clearly that the beginning of Christianity and the beginning of the Abrahamic cultures were very different. And the beginning of history, as we are saying, the dawn of mankind, were very different.
Yes.
So this
did you see it?
Yeah.
Did you see a resurgence of the old world? Precipitated or catalyzed by the advent of technology.
But it's not so much a resurgence of the old world. It's a resurgence of knowledge that was hidden, that is being brought up again by technology, by communication technology.
I think Hinduism has benefited from technology more than any other religion,
course.
Because
and it can be even more benefited, if we use the technology in the right way. It depends on us. You know, the opportunities are just opportunities. They're not, you know, it's not that God does things for us. You know, we need to.
Okay.
We are getting opportunities. We need to work on them.
So the first thing you mentioned here is that what you see is a, how should we say, not a resurgence, but you see that people are starting to rediscover old knowledge that was perhaps hidden through technology, and that's one thing. But how do you see society structurally? Because, you know, previously you talked a bit about the Buddha, and then you talked about Adi Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya. We then went into the advent of Abrahamism. So you know you beautifully explained these transitions very, very well. How do you see? Do you see a similar transition? Do you see another
we
Buddha,
already, we are already in the middle of it. There is.
How do you see that playing out?
Riding on this technology wave, we see individualism and universalism at the same time. You know, the leaders of spirituality, the leaders of culture, are now very individualistic, but they are also bringing the same message. They're not different. You know, they're all you know, tapping from the same river. So this can bring, you know, the opportunity is that people can become more, you know, like people can get more opportunities for personal journey in spirituality.
But what was it like before? You know, you said that, you know, because most of us only know that. Most of us only know that personal journey, but it wasn't so personal previously.
No,
is that what you're saying? What was it like?
No, exactly. That is the point. In ancient times, you know, at least, you know, before, after the last age of Aquarius, we can say, you know, in Kali Yuga only started 5,000 years ago, so we just plopped, you know, into the age of Aquarius. You know, it's the people who are what to say, limited in the access of knowledge. That's why knowledge.
Well, when did we enter? When did we enter the age of Aquarius? You know, round.
Oh, this day started in 1978.
1978.
Yeah.
That's very recent, and that links very nicely with the advent of the personal computer and all these other things, isn't it? Basically,
exactly. Of course, there is a transition period, you know, in which it's like, you know, when we say 21st December is the beginning of winter. Yeah, right. It's not that, you know, the 20th December we are just, you know, sunbathing on the beach with, you know, it's so hot.
The next day you freeze to death. Basically.
Yeah, exactly. You know, next day you freeze to death. No, I mean, it's gradual. There is a transition. But, you know, basically you can feel at some point that things are changing. You know, you can see the symptoms. So, you know, in previous ages, knowledge was transmitted through initiation, through mysteries. You know, like it was very. It was not popular. It was not popularized. So it was secret. We can say secret knowledge. Now it's totally available to everyone, anyone who, you know, anyone who's interested, they can buy a Bhagavad Gita.
So it's now the era of accessibility.
Yeah.
Whereas, like previously, the average Hindu was stuck in a rut if he or she did not have access to the right, because your access to books depended on your environment, your teacher.
Exactly.
Whereas now, with the advent of technology, I can sit somewhere totally different and access exactly the same material as someone else. So
not of the same quality maybe, but that was also there before, different qualities of gurus. Before Kali Yuga, anyone could access knowledge but going through a guru. So in Dwapara Yuga, before that, anyone could go to a guru and, undergo the training and everything and get even the most secret knowledge. But it was not like sold in, in the newspapers shops. You see, this is the particular characteristic of the Aquarius that is very universal, very open and individual as well.
So far, the key ones are obviously is that it's the advent sort of individualism. You've mentioned that now, which I think again very relatable. I mean, you now have access to so much more if you want to than before. What's that gonna translate into on a societal level, Mataji? Because you get gurus and swamis popping up everywhere now on the YouTube.
Exactly.
But for the average working person, what are you going to see? How is that going to translate societally in the long run? Because is it? Do you see this being largely positive?
In the long run, it's difficult to say because again, we are now at a transition point where this technology, this tendency can be used for the good or for the bad. It's not that because the technology is good, it can only be used for the good. So if we don't stand up, we don't, work to support Dharma and to use the opportunity in a good way, then it will turn sour. It will be used against us.
Yes, so again, there are pros and cons, but Mataji, the point is that it is largely positive though, because I remember as a child, my knowledge of Hinduism depended on where I lived in the world and on who my immediate teachers were. If they wanted things to go in one way, we would have had no choice, Mataji. It was just that, because that's all we had access to. Whereas now you're getting you have access to all the Upanishads online if you want to, most of them anyway. And you've got access to individual teachers. Whereas, and I guess the con side of that is that you can fall into traps.
Exactly. If you don't understand, if you're not ready to to grow and to be sincere and honest in your effort, you are going to be cheated because cheaters find the people who want to be cheated.
So you've talked about the fact that Buddha came and transformed things when the Brahmanas were corrupt, and then you've talked about Adi Shankar coming in, looking at things and then saying, actually, this has gone a bit too far. We're at the stage of nothingness. What do you see happening in this respect, or do you see anything happening in this respect over the immediate future? Because obviously there's going to be huge societal changes with the advent of technology. Someone in Italy or Albania or Saudi Arabia or anybody, maybe not there, but in lots of places.
It's already happening.
Yes.
You know, we are sitting in very different geographical places now.
But what I'm saying, Mataji, is that you talked about the fact that the Brahmanas were doing all sorts of deviations. So that's when the Buddha came in and said, enough, all this has to stop now.
Yeah, that's exactly, what is happening is that we need to stop the institutionalized movements that were characteristic of the Pisces. You know, the great religions, the great movements, we have a prophet, we have a leader, we have a guru, we have one, the shepherd.
Are you talking organized religion? Are you talking organization?
Yeah. All forms of organized religion. You know,
so you're returning to almost earlier Vedic times, aren't you? Then.
Well, but it's a spiral. The cycle of time is not a closed circle; it's a spiral. So it is not going to be exactly the same.
You can't see how organizations can maintain their credibility when there are so many alternative sources. Because
exactly.
So let's say I'm an average person and I join an organization. At any point now, if I start to get some misgivings, the fact that we have an information-rich environment around me, I will utilize that to say, actually, hang on, I don't quite believe what I'm being told here, and I'll join something else. Not join something else, but I will go somewhere
we'll find something else.
I'll find something else, whereas that would not have happened in the past. I would have perhaps said, oh, well, you know what? I might have second thoughts about this, or I might have cold feet about this, but it's safer to stay with the crowd. Whereas I think that isn't quite the same now.
That's not safer. You see, they're crumbling apart. They're dying out. The only people who stay, who decide they want to be safe and stay in the sheep, pen. They are not happy.
No,
they're dying out.
Their reasons are very different. They're not truth seekers, are they? They're
of course, they just want, they just want the gang, but the gangs are becoming smaller and smaller.
Okay, so
they're fracturing. They're dividing into different gangs.
Yes. I'm seeing
they're fighting each other like anything.
Yeah. So that's now really clear, and I can see evidence of that. What else do you see, Mataji, during this time? Because these are really important concepts to understand. Otherwise everything is chaos, or it feels like chaos. But if you know about this,
it's not.
You know what I mean? So
talking about society, one big thing that has already been happening is that there are no classes anymore. There are no varnas. There are no classes. Kala Shudra Sambhava. More or less. Everyone is the same, which is also a very Aquarian characteristic. Because equality, individual equality, universal. We are all Atman.
Yes.
And our roles in society can be different, but not necessarily. Because we can change more easily our roles.
So this is where I'm going to ask you, Mataji, because previously you've talked about the fact that there were sub-cohorts within Varnas during previous ages. You talked about the Kayashta. You talked about these little sub-cohorts, administrators.
Yeah.
Now we're at a stage where Varna isn't readily discernible because of the roles. So my point is, Mataji, is there any sense in this age to recreate the old Varna system or not?
Yeah, in the sense that we need to understand the science in order to go beyond it. We can transcend something only after we have actually understood it. It's like, like Gita is saying, Krishna Gita is saying, when you have realized, gone through the forest of illusion, whatever you have heard and whatever you will hear will be irrelevant, but only after you have studied. You cannot throw your books away before you study.
Yes.
After you studied, you don't need the books anymore. So the Varnas, we need to understand exactly what the Varna system is, not because we want to go back to the past, but because we know that when you are playing a Brahmana, you need to follow the scientific knowledge of the Brahmana. You cannot be a Brahmana and a Kshatriya and a Sannyasi and a Grihastha and whatever at the same time. Because that's not being transcendental, that's being ignorant. Now,
Yes.
we get the opportunity not to go back to the, the social structure that we used to have, because we cannot go back in time. Okay. But we need to know, we need to understand the Vedic science so that we can go beyond it. We need to understand the Varna Shrama system so that we can go beyond it, but in a competent manner. Otherwise, we'll just be stupid, we'll just be ignorant, we'll just make a mess.
Yes. It's got to be done properly rather than
it has to be done with proper understanding and realization, and you need to know that if you want to be a sannyasi but not be tied up by the social rules of sannyasa like explained in the Upanishad, it's not that you can just say, oh, I don't care.
Yes.
You need to see beyond it. You need to transcend it, but in the proper way, knowing what you're doing. There is a difference between transcending and ignoring. Many people can't see that.
Yes. So again, you've talked about societal roles and the fact that there's a blur. No, I wouldn't say blurring, but what?
No, there's a different situation. There's a different desha kalapatra. So we have to adjust. Just like Buddha did it, and Adi Shankar did it, and the preachers in colonial times did it. We need to adjust to the new situation. But in order to adjust to the new situation, we need to be very solid about what we need to move from one container to the next. Because we need to change a container, not the substance.
Yes.
So, in the example of the baby and the bath water, we need to know what is the baby and what is the bath water. Otherwise, we just throw the baby out and keep the bath water. It's not it's not a guarantee.
Yes.
Throwing out, what do you throw out? You don't know. You can't tell the difference between a baby and the bath water.
Yes.
So, knowledge is important.
And Mataji, regarding the relationship between Abrahamism and Sanatana Dharma or Hinduism, how do you see that playing out? From that perspective.
I'm exactly working on this for the last several months, quite a few years indeed. I've been researching on the Abrahamic history and texts, So the relationship is, again, based on knowledge. We need to actually understand, have a clear knowledge of history and scriptures. Like I usually say, text and context. The scriptures say, what the scriptures actually say, and all the scriptures, not just, the version that we have been given. We need to dig deeper. So, for example, I've been doing some research on the early Christianity. Like, for example, I don't think you heard about Marcion.
No.
Yeah, because nobody heard about it. That was the first actual Christian preacher. And Marcion is, his books have been completely destroyed, and we know about him only from things that his opponents were writing about him. But after, again, in 1947, I think, with the, when the Nag Hammadi and the Qumran manuscripts were found, we got a completely different set of information, set of knowledge about the early Christianity and early, the late Judaism, about that period. So Marcion was saying basically that the God of the Bible is the Asura, which makes sense. Made complete sense.
Yes.
And you heard about the Bishop Arius? Nope.
What is it?
You heard about the Council of Nicaea?
Yes, I've heard about that. Okay. When they basically...
Yeah, the Council of Nicaea was called by Constantine, under the control of Constantine, the Roman Empire. And he decided what Christianity should be. And that was a council where Bishop Arius was excommunicated, was declared a heretic. And he was the main leader of Christianity. And because the Bishop Arius, the Arius was teaching that Jesus was a human being.
Right.
And that's why he was cut off as a heretic.
Right.
And there is not one single place in this, even in the canonical scriptures, where it is said that Jesus was God. That was completely invented in the Council of Nicaea. So, we can, the good thing is that, there is some also movement among the people who want to, focus on Christianity. And, the same opportunities, similar opportunities are coming up. And I've been suggested to write a book entitled The European Veda. And I'm doing a lot of research about that just in this period. So I think that one chapter will be dedicated about how can we include Christianity in Hinduism, in Vedic knowledge. Because there can be connections. There can be connections, but not in the Christianity that people, that is presented by the mainstream establishments. That's a totally, Abrahamic. The only Christianity that can be compatible with Hinduism is non-Abrahamic.
Interesting discussion. Well, do you know, that's really interesting, because I think that's a topic for a whole discussion one day.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because that's obviously, people ask, what's the relationship between
Yeah,
Christianity,
if you think about Marchand saying that the God of the Old Testament is the Asura, this is a bad guy, then all the Abrahamic concept is thrown out of the window, because who made the pact with the God of the Old Testament? Abraham, right?
Abraham.
Yeah.
Abraham. Yeah.
So, that this means that Marchand was non-Abrahamic.
Yes.
So, Marchand's Christianity was non-Abrahamic.
Yes.
Which means, okay, so then it's compatible.
Right. Okay.
We can discuss about this more in the future.
That's definitely given me food for thought for an entirely new discussion, because my own view is there is no link with Christianity and Hinduism. Christianity should not belong in Hinduism. And that it was my view, and almost to the point where I say I'm not really interested in Jesus. I don't really care.
Of course, so the Jesus that they're selling us is it's toxic.
No, so that's my position. So when we start our discussion on this, that's the point I'll be starting with, and it'll be interesting to see where that goes. So that is a very, very interesting discussion in its own right, I think.
Yeah.
We could spend a whole hour simply talking about that. so Matija, I'd like to thank you for your time. I think it's been an excellent discussion, and my obeisance to you, and look forward to.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to get this opportunity. Okay, Jai.
Thank you, Jai Shri Manara.
Jai Shri Manara.
Jai Shri Manara. Take care. Jai.